Hi, welcome to Digging to China. I'm Dong Shong. Recently, an interesting development occurred. Chinese and American research institutions almost simultaneously published evaluations of Xi Jinping's administration, essentially grading his performance. What has Xi Jinping's administration really been like over the past decade? Putting aside the slander and the defamation from Western hostile forces, let's first examine how Chinese research institutions and some pro-China American scholars assess Xi Jinping's leadership. Let's begin with a report released by the Center for China Studies at the Peking University. Although this report was discussed in China for a while before being censored, it remains a hot topic overseas. Despite the restrictions on criticizing President Xi at the Peking University, the report is quite insightful and evaluates Xi Jinping's administration from several objective perspectives. We will refer to Bloomberg's coverage of this research report. The Center for China Studies at the Peking University conducted 3 rounds of surveys on China's social conditions and made time-based comparisons of the data from these surveys. The first report was published in 2004. The second report came out in 2014 when Xi Jinping had just taken office, and it provided a similar assessment of China's social conditions. The third and the latest survey was conducted in 2023. The time-based comparison made through these 3 rounds of surveys have garnered widespread attention from both the public and international media. This interest arises from the fact that these comparisons reveal subtle yet significant changes occurring with Chinese society. All 3 reports address a common issue: why people fall into poverty. In the 2004 survey, which included several thousand participants, the primary reason for poverty identified was a lack of personal ability. People felt that their own skills were inadequate. The second most cited reason was a lack of effort. People thought they were not working hard enough compared to others. In the 2004 and the 2014 surveys, some people attributed poverty to unequal opportunities. However, in 2004, this reason was ranked 6th for poverty. By 2014, it had dropped to 8th place, indicating it was no longer considered a major factor. This shift suggests that when President Xi Jinping first came into office, people did not view inequality as a primary cause of poverty. Instead, the main reasons cited were a lack of personal ability and insufficient effort. People largely believed that the poverty was due to their own shortcomings rather than external factors. By 2023, the situation had shifted significantly. In a new survey of several thousand people, unequal opportunities emerged as the top reason for poverty, now ranked first. A lack of personal ability, though still a factor, had fallen to 6th place, while insufficient effort was ranked 5th. This time-based comparison reveals significant changes in China's social atmosphere and dynamics. Between 2004 and 2014, people were generally focused on striving and accepting the outcomes of their efforts. However, by 2023, attitudes had shifted. People increasingly felt that opportunities were lacking and that their efforts were futile. Unequal opportunities became the leading cause of poverty, while an unfair economic system was ranked 3rd. Clearly, since Xi Jinping came to power, unequal opportunities have emerged as the leading cause of poverty. His administration has led many at the lower levels to feel a sense of despair, not due to a lack of effort or ability, but because of systemic unfairness. This time-based comparison helps explain why the lying flat trend is so prevalent in China today, with both young people and elites within the system increasingly adopting this attitude. It highlights a harsh reality of widespread disillusionment. In China's distorted reform environment, a large entrenched interest group has developed. making it increasingly difficult for people to rise. This situation is understandable. However, the lying flat trend within the bureaucratic system itself is more perplexing. This trend can be linked to Xi Jinping's emphasis on original intentions and red bloodlines. Essentially, Xi has conveyed a message within the CCP. Without a distinguished background or influential connections, your efforts are futile. No matter how capable or hardworking you are, it won't lead to promotion or advancement. The survey report also approached the topic from a different angle by asking how people achieve wealth. It inquired, how did you become wealthy, or how do you think those around you became wealthy? According to the 2004 survey, the primary factors for achieving wealth were 1. Having skills and talent, 2. Receiving higher education, 3. Possessing connections and relationships, and 4. Being diligent and hardworking. It's clear that in 2004, having skills and talent were still the top factors for achieving wealth. By 2014, having skills and talent was still the top factor for achieving wealth. However, the second most important factor changed to being hardworking and persistent. The significance of higher education moved to a less prominent position. By 2023, the factors for achieving wealth in Chinese society have changed dramatically. The primary factor now is connections and relationships, which have become the most recognized path to wealth. The second most important factor is growing up in a wealthy family, reflecting the influence of having good parents. Unlike in 2004, where higher education and hard working were key, or even 2014, where hard work was crucial, today's China sees personal connections and family background as the main determinant of wealth. This shift highlights that in contemporary China, achieving wealth on one's own has become increasingly difficult. Today in China, hard work is ranked 4th, while the importance of higher education has significantly declined. In 2004, higher education was ranked 2nd, but by 2014 it had dropped to 6th, and by 2023 it fell to 7th. This trend indicates that the value of higher education is diminishing. The decreasing effectiveness of higher education is a troubling development for Chinese society. The 2023 survey, in contrast to previous ones, reflects the significant impact of the 3-year pandemic on the psychological and the social mindset of Chinese people. Research in social psychology indicates that how people attribute poverty affects their response. Those with an internal attribution, believing that they can change their circumstances, are more likely to put in effort and actively seek to improve their situation. On the other hand, those with an external attribution who feels powerless to influence external factors are more prone to complain without making much effort to change. This tendency can trap the economy in a negative cycle. When people are more inclined to take actions, the economy may improve and individuals have a better chance of overcoming poverty. Conversely, if people focus more on complaining rather than taking action, economic progress becomes harder to achieve and escaping poverty becomes increasingly unlikely. The most striking finding of the Peking University report is that under Xi Jinping's decade of rule, Chinese society has become increasingly negative rather than more positive. This is not a critique from Western adversaries or an attempt to discredit Xi Jinping. It comes from Peking University's Center for China Studies. According to this report, if we were to evaluate Xi Jinping's performance, it would be considered a failure, and his leadership has led to deteriorating conditions in China. Meanwhile, another intriguing report from the US has emerged, which is neither from Western adversaries nor anti-China forces. This report was published by Professor Yuen Yuen Ang of Johns Hopkins University. Ang, a Singaporean economist and a political scientist, has strong ties with Chinese officials and frequently visits China. He is a leading expert on China in the US and is tolerated by the CCP. However, it remains to be seen whether Xi Jinping will continue to permit his visit to China after the release of this report. Professor Yuen Yuen Ang assessed Xi Jinping's governance using big data analysis. In contrast to the Peking University report, which is based on broader evaluations, Ang's analysis relies on concrete data. He classifies the documents issued by the State Council into 3 categories. 1. Gray instructions. These are vague directives from the central government that often contain contradictory requirements. 2. Black instructions. These are clear and specific directives detailing exactly what actions should be taken with a straightforward and unambiguous guidance. 3. Red instructions. These are prohibitive directives from the central government that explicitly outline what actions are banned. Black and red instructions represent very clear directives, while gray instructions leave subordinates confused and unsure of how to proceed. Professor Yuen Yuen Ang conducted a comprehensive big data analysis of CCP documents over an extended period, from 1978 to 2017. He discovered distinct patterns in how the 3 types of directives have evolved. What are these patterns? Gray instructions. These ambiguous central documents have markedly increased from 1978 to 2017. This trend indicates that from Deng Xiaoping's era to Xi Jinping's, there has been a rise in unclear directives from the central government, suggesting a growing tendency towards vagueness. The rise in gray instructions prompts the question of whether this ambiguity is intentional or if it reflects increasing difficulties in governance and a lack of clear direction. Professor Yuen Yuen Ang, who is relatively sympathetic to CCP, does not offer a definitive conclusion, but notes that Xi Jinping's era has seen more vague and unclear directives compared to the Deng Xiaoping era. Second, black instructions have steadily decreased, showing that under Xi Jinping's leadership, there are fewer clear and explicit directives encouraging specific actions. Regarding the third type, red instructions, prohibitions on what cannot be done, their trajectory is quite revealing. From 1978 to 2017, these directives initially decreased, but then rose sharply. During Deng Xiaoping's era, there were fewer prohibitive instructions, with policies primarily offering guidance and support rather than imposing restrictions. In contrast, under Xi Jinping's leadership, the number of prohibitive directives has increased significantly, reflecting a notable rise in regulation and control. The report carefully concludes that based on the changes in the 3 types of directives from 1978 to 2017, there has been a notable shift in the CCP's governance approach. The analysis reveals that under Xi Jinping, there has been an increase in regulatory controls and a decrease in clear directives supporting reform and individuals' initiatives. Additionally, there has been a rise in ambiguous and unclear instructions. The report indicates that Xi Jinping's governance has become more rigid compared to previous leaders. Earlier CCP leadership emphasized active promotion and decentralization with fewer restrictions. In contrast, under Xi Jinping, there has been a significant rise in prohibition and ambiguous directives, which is detrimental to societal development. These 2 reports vividly illustrate the past decade under Xi Jinping. Both the Peking University report and the American report reach similar conclusions. Society has grown increasingly negative over the last 10 years. From public responses and time-based comparisons, it is clear that under Xi Jinping's leadership, there has been rising pessimism among the people and a more passive approach to governance. This finding is indeed quite striking. Thank you for watching. Please like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.